cut it. Just cut it
I
out.
know.
Just cut
I'll
the whole
just
podcast.
No, Nick, we've
Hello,
been gone for
goodbye.
too long. People will start wondering, where are they? We literally haven't recorded together in I think a month, Nick. Am I wrong?
It's been a month. Yeah, it's been a month because you've been having sunshine double adventures and I've been curled up safely at home, trying to watch as much as I can from many thousands of miles away. But yeah, and so it's just trying to find times where we could record together whilst Anastasia was on the road was a bit of a nightmare. And then Anastasia
Yes.
got sick. So,
Yes.
unsurprisingly, given how on the road you were. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we are fine. It's all right. I mean, if anyone's thinking I look particularly pale, it's because the sun is setting right outside my window. So do not, I just to put that out there, the vampire rumors are not true. I have not been stuck in a coffin for the last month.
Man, I'm like super dark because I've been in the sun all like for a month basically, from Indian Wells to the Miami Open. Yeah, it's been too long, Nick. We haven't recorded in so long, and I'm glad that we're back together. The gang's back together and we can talk tennis. So, welcome everyone. Welcome to another episode of Ground Pass Podcast. I really apologize if I have to mute myself to cough, but you know, I'm still getting better. I'm getting better. My voice is probably a little bit croaky, but it is all good. We have our coffee and we're ready to talk tennis. Um so Nick, this episode is pretty much going to be Miami Open. It's sort of like catching up on the tournament and, recapping all of the tennis that has happened at the tournament. But we actually have a Q&A, and we got this Q&A during Indian Wells actually, and you did a tennis lesson that I have not edited and put out yet, but I'm going to. But I thought, for our podcast listeners who don't follow us on social media, it would be awesome to answer this question as well. And I wanted to pick this question in particular because I wanted to highlight something. We started this podcast because we wanted to be able to explain tennis to people who are new fans and don't understand. And we definitely have followers who are more in depth in the sport and know exactly all the nitty gritty parts of it. But we want to encourage people, like, if there's stuff that you do not understand, please do not feel like you cannot ask that question. No matter how simple it might seem, ask away. And I thought this question was really good, especially during the Sunshine Double, when we have two Masters events, 1,000 level events going on at the same time. And the question came from Hannah. Hi, Hannah. Hannah's been following us for a while, and she asked this question, and I really, really loved it. But Hannah asked, could you talk about sometimes men only play to 3 sets and sometimes 5? And Nick, this is right up your alley. Like, you've got this one.
Right, pretty much. So I'm quite glad I don't have 90 seconds to explain this because trying to make that reel and condense everything down was a bit of a nightmare. That being said, this may well end up replacing the reel if this is a better explanation. So the reason why it's separate is very simply it depends on who's organizing the event. Whether it's a Grand Slam or whether it's run by the ATP Tour. So what happened was, back in many years ago when tennis first started, every men's match was best of 5 sets. And then basically, as tennis became bigger, it became professional, they started to try and sell TV rights. There were tournaments that were trying to sell TV rights and compete with the Grand Slams that felt it would be better for them to do it in a shorter format. So gradually, over several decades, it was phased out on the ATP Tour, even until the 2000s, when like some of the Masters 1000 still had best of 5 set finals, but it was best of 3 for the rest of the tournament. And then one year, Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal played like back-to-back 5 set epics, or like definitely the one in Rome that went for so long. And you can check it out because I think it's in full on YouTube as one of the best matches they ever played. And the tour went, okay, this is not sustainable with the way tennis is going. So they then reduced it. So ATP Tour's like, we want to have shorter matches for TV. The Grand Slams, however, because they've been going since the sport started, they predate the professional era. Very few tournaments that are still going predate the professional era of tennis, or open era as we call it. They are like, no, because, well, they want to keep best of five sets for two reasons. One, for the history, because they've always been best of five sets and they can kind of have that comparison in there. But also, five sets is because obviously it's a longer format, it's a tougher physical and mental test. And so for the Grand Slams, they're like, well, because we want to still be the pinnacle of the sport, that means that we want the players to work harder to win it, basically, to win any other tournament. Even if, by my argument, like, you have to win 7 matches to win a Grand Slam unless you win a Masters 1000 coming through qualifying or something. So it's very rare. It's still very, very difficult. What I will add into the mix is, obviously, there's just bringing here is obviously women in 5-set tennis. Women have never played 5-set tennis in Grand Slams. The WTA Tour has experimented with it in the past, particularly the WTA finals, best of 5 sets, but there isn't really an appetite amongst the current players to change their training schedules to do it. I mean, there's some suggestions of like maybe splitting the slams, of like part of it being best of 3 and some of it best of 5 for both men and women. And there's not that much of an appetite, again, talking WTA players, to kind of have this format switch mid-tournament, even though they know full well that they'd be fit enough for it. But that's a bit of a tangent, but I know people would ask about it. Fundamentally, short version of this is it depends on who's organising it and what their motivations are. And that's why we have some best of 3 and some best of 5 in men's tennis.
Yeah. No, that was a great way of describing it. And, it kind of, there is that debate of should the Grand Slams just all go to best of 3 because, people just want shorter matches and no one really actually watches a full, like, 4-hour, 5-hour, 5-set match. So yeah, it's up for debate for sure. And you're right. The women at Indian Wells and Miami were asked a lot actually about the 5-set tennis thing, because Craig Tiley, who was formerly of Tennis Australia but is now the CEO of the USTA, mentioned that he wanted to sort of, in his parting message, he mentioned that he wanted to see women play 5-set tennis, but like at the later end of the tournament. And literally every female tennis player that has been asked so far that I've been in the room for has said no. Like, first of all, there's no appetite for 5-set tennis anyway. But second of all, to have that mid-tournament switch all of a sudden to a different format, none of them were excited about that. So you nailed it right there. So let's get into the Miami Open. The Miami Open, as I have dubbed it, the people's tennis paradise. It is the people's tennis paradise. It is such a vibrant and fun tournament, and we will get into all of it. But we actually have another question. I put a Q&A for while I was at the Miami Open in stories on Instagram. I put a Q&A there for people to ask us questions. I didn't do it in Indian Wells and all the earlier tournaments I went to because I was really I forgot. I'm sorry, guys. I actually just forgot. So I remembered in Miami and I put it in there, and we got a question from Katie, who's also someone who's followed us for a while. And Katie asks, what are the grounds like for visitors versus other tournaments, access, shade, and Wi-Fi? And Katie, she hit it on the head, because literally that's what's important to people going to tournaments. Yes, the courts, all of that stuff, they're excited, like which court to go on, which one's the best, practice courts and all of that. But the biggest thing I have to say is shade and Wi-Fi, because when you're at these tournaments, Wi-Fi can be your phone could just shut down. And at Indian Wells, that is definitely the case. At Indian Wells during the weekend, you might as well leave your phone at home, because it is not going to work with those crowds of people and all of that. It is different in Miami. Miami, the Wi-Fi is way better for sure, which is good. And in terms of shade, I have to say the shade, I feel like there are more shady places at Indian Wells. Like, they have this like big, like 2 really big grassy areas that are shaded by all of these trees. So that's so easy to just pop off of a court and go take a break. At Miami Open, it's tougher, I think. They have some areas, but they're not really near the court sometimes or are not in full shade. And I have to say, at the Miami Open, because the seating is mostly temporary, they're all metal. So when it is hot, the seats get hot, and then you feel like you're baking in an oven because you're surrounded by metal that's hot and everything's just hot, and it can be actually pretty brutal.
Can I ask a question about that? Because my instinct would be bring something to put on the seat. Knowing that, would you recommend that, like a blanket or like a sweater or something like
Yes.
that? Immediately, let's go. I I'm so glad you shared that because that's one of those things that when you go to a tournament you don't even think about because most seats I can
Yeah.
think of are like plastic. If they're
Hmm.
metal, that's even worse. So
Yeah.
sounds like bring something to cover your seat with.
Bring something for sure. It just, they get so hot. And because already it's hot in Florida, so you're wearing shorts, for example, then your legs start to burn because you're sitting. So I always say, even if you don't want to buy, because at some tournaments you can buy like the cushion, but it's like you're spending money. Just bring a scarf, bring a jacket, bring a towel, anything just to put down on the metal benches before you sit down because they can get really, really hot. And I think we can just go into kind of what the tournament was like. We've talked about this. I feel like, I went last year, and in our podcast from last year, I also talked about the Miami Open and the difference between the crowds at the tournaments. Something that's come up a lot that I've seen on social media is a lot of people are saying it's so weird where an American is playing someone, for example, from Latin America, and the person from Latin America is getting more cheers than the American. And that is just basically the Miami Open. You might as well call it the Latin American Masters or the Latin American 1000 level event because you hear more Spanish than English on the grounds. You hear more Portuguese, different languages. It just feels like such an international and cosmopolitan tournament versus Indian Wells that you clearly know where you are. You're in America, that's what it is. But you come to the Miami Open and the food is so different. Like crowds, everything. It's just so fun and eclectic. And I kind of love that a lot. For the American players, it's not great. I can't remember who Mickelson was playing. I think maybe it was Tabia or someone. I can't remember, but he had to shush the crowd because they were cheering so loudly for his Latin American opponent. And I can understand how crazy that can be, especially since he's playing at home at a home tournament. So it's pretty interesting in that way how diverse it is. There isn't really, I feel like in the UK it's very just English. Like all the tournaments are just so English.
That's the appropriate way to applaud a point.
If you are not watching us on YouTube, you really need to just stop, go to YouTube, and watch Nick do the proper English clap for a point in
Mm.
tennis.
Yeah, it's very good.
Although I have jolly good. I do have to say, um, I just found out that Apple Podcasts now has video. I need to figure out how to work that. But basically, you will be able to see us in video and audio in pretty much most podcasting platforms on YouTube, on Spotify, and now on Apple Podcasts, which are the three main ways people watch and listen to us. So stay tuned for that coming soon. Oh, this is a good one about the Miami Open. The practice courts are not great. They're just not.
Oh, I'm surprised.
Yeah, it's one of those. So if you compare it to Indian Wells, like it's not even a contest. Like Indian Wells is the definition of what can be done with practice courts. With Miami, the viewing of the courts, like there are about 20 courts, practice courts. Yeah, there are about 20 of them. There are only 4 of them that you can really actually sit and watch the players. All the other ones are There's no seating, so you can't really see the players. You can kind of see them from far away. But yeah, the practice courts are not great.
I think I remember you saying this last year, actually, and we're having this conversation of how similar that is to Wimbledon. But
Yeah.
um, I do. There we go. Like, we're just going to keep doing this for as long as we go to Miami until they fix the practice courts. But let's be honest, though, comparing anything to Indian Wells in terms of practice courts is that it's always going to fall short. Like, the US
Mm,
Open is probably the closest from the ones that we've been to.
yeah.
I can't remember what the Australian Open situation was. But yeah, nowhere compares well to Indian Wells. So I will put that forward in Miami's defense.
Yes, that's valid. That's valid. And then I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what it's like watching Miami Open, because I've seen this debate everywhere, and I kind of want to talk about it a little bit in my last point here, where I put here, don't watch tennis in the stadium, maybe, because the Miami Open is a temporary site. It is held in the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, which is actually outside of Miami. So it's not in Miami proper. It's closer to Fort Lauderdale. If you stay, for example, if you stay in downtown Miami, which is by the beach and all the cool stuff, it'll take you anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour to get to the site. So a lot of people in the tournament actually have the opportunity of staying closer to the site around the Miami Gardens area or Aventura or Fort Lauderdale. So because it's a temporary site, it's a football stadium that also hosts the tennis and F1 as well. I got to hang out in the paddock, Nick. It was like one of my
Nice.
favorite things was I got to just all they were doing the pre-tournament media in the paddock. And I was just like, this is the
Mm.
best thing ever. But it's all temporary, it's all built in. So the main stadium is built within the football stadium. And if you look at it, it just looks like scaffolding for the most part. Three sides of it are actually okay for tennis viewing, but there is one side of it that is sort of it's built into football seating, but it's just not built for tennis. Like the viewing angles aren't great from that side, especially. And watching it on TV, Nick, I just wanted to get what your impressions were of the site watching it on TV, because I feel like it's very different from being there in person.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, let's talk about it. So I in previous years it's not been great, to be honest. It's previous years it's not been great from the TV perspective because you can tell the stadium within the stadium and it did look weird. This year, I don't know if they fixed the camera angle or they've done something new with the temporary stand, but you really can't tell.
Mm,
Now it does feel like a bit more of a slicker operation to watch on TV. You've got proper electronic boards at the back. The stadium, I think the angles are kind of showing a bit more of bit more of the fuller side of the stadium. So I don't know if they've changed the structure of it or the camera angles, but it looks better to watch on TV compared to previous years. So it feels like a bigger event. It feels like a slick event, modern event to watch. And obviously, I've seen kind of photos of the site that you've put up and others have put up. Like when the sky coverage pans out to see the site, you can see all these courts right next to a football stadium with an F1 track coming past them, which is just insane. Like a sports complex like that is insane as a concept.
yeah.
So I think obviously the reality might be a bit of a letdown, but they're certainly selling a good picture to watch on TV. And maybe Miami's one of those many tennis tournaments that if you're going to watch the big players, watch on TV. If you want to go and have an experience, go on the grounds.
Yes. Yes, that is the best way to put it, Nick. And it's actually really interesting because the structure hasn't changed, but it's interesting to know that they've kind of changed the angles a little bit to maybe show a better side of the main stadium. But I cannot emphasize enough, just get a ground pass. Don't even bother. In Miami, get a ground pass, stay on the grounds, enjoy the tennis on the grounds. Because unlike Indian Wells, which hopefully they will switch back next year to letting ground pass ticket holders into Stadium 2. But at the Miami Open, the ground pass gets you everywhere except the stadium. And frankly, great. That's all
Yeah.
right. That's great. A lot of people, what they did is they actually have a lot of TVs around the site at the Miami Open with seating. So a lot of times, if there was a match in the stadium, there's so many people just hanging out because they're very cute. They're almost like beach cabanas just scattered around the site. So it's definitely a vibe. And so many people would just be hanging outside of those, watching the screens and not even going into the stadiums. This was a question someone actually asked as well on our Instagram. And they were asking, like, why do the stands feel so empty? And I think, other than the fact that the Miami Open doesn't really ever sell out, they had a really big crowd. They broke records for the Fonseca Carlos Alcaraz match that happened. They definitely broke records there, but it's not a tournament that usually sells out. But here's the thing, there's just such a culture of it being a very sort of casual tennis fan tournament. There are so many people on the grounds. There's so many people just in the food area. There was like a cafe called La Trova Cafe that had a bar attached to it, and people would be just dancing. They had a live salsa band, and people would be dancing, having tacos. The food area was packed. There were always lines. There weren't lines to the courts, there were lines to get to the food stands. So in terms of like, if all of those people went into stadiums, it would be packed and full. But I think so many people dip in for a match for like 10 minutes and then they go to the grounds and they just hang out on the ground. So I think it's a little bit deceptive in that way, that, people are like, oh, why is it empty? I'm like, it is not empty here.
Yeah. I have a question actually then
Yeah.
based on that, because the ground pass experience sounds so good, and actually from your description, quite a unique ground pass experience in comparison to others. You've been to all the big US tournaments
Yes.
now. I don't know what a ground pass in Charleston gets you. It's a relatively decent sized 500, but I don't know how many outer courts they've got and things like that. So I'll leave it up to you, because you've been there, to decide whether to include that in the list of US Open, Indian Wells, Miami, Cincinnati. But if I was to say I'm going to get a ground pass for all, like one of these events, would that be a tough? You don't just need to necessarily rank them or like do anything silly like that, but like it sounds like to me it would be a tough choice, because the ground pass experience at these tournaments is of a level, or at least done in a different enough way, that you would be missing out if you didn't go to one of them. Would that be a right assessment there?
So here's what I'll say. First of all, unfortunately, Cincinnati is out of it. Last year, they stopped their ground passes, so you can't even
Go
get a
about that.
ground pass to Cincinnati. You have to get like one of the stadium tickets, and then you can hang out on the grounds, and that's fine. For all the others, I would say getting a ground pass to somewhere in the Sunshine Double is the way to go, if you want that sort of big tournament vibe. The US Open has just become prohibitively expensive. Like, unless you are buying tickets as they drop and you're a bot or something and you can do it super fast, you're paying so much money for ground pass tickets that sometimes I'm actually like, you know what? Just get a super high level Arthur Ashe ticket and then hang out on the grounds. So in terms of ground pass ticket value, I would definitely say the Sunshine Double is the way to go. If you really are down for fun and just to hang out and kind of get the same US Open vibe, I would say Miami Open, because the Miami Open has that sort of like fun. People are just there to hang out. It's an event. The tournament is kind of almost just on the side of it. Like, you can watch the tennis, sure, but you could also just go to the Miami Open and just hang out. You could play padel. You could play, well, they didn't have pickleball this year. They only actually had padel this year. You could go on the Skyview. It's like a day out with some tennis is the vibe, I think, of the Miami Open.
Interesting. Yeah. And I think that's its USP very much so.
Yeah.
When you think about Indian Wells being tennis paradise for the fans. And like, obviously, whatever level of fandom you are, not just the hardcore, anyone,
Yeah.
US Open is just an event. Doesn't matter whether it's tennis or not.
Yeah.
It's just an event. And I think it's a shame that by the sound of it, you could pay premium to get to the US Open and have a very similar experience to being at Miami.
Yes.
Which
100%.
is still a good experience, but there's nothing extra on top of it that justifies the additional price other than it's the national event and it's
correct.
It's the name recognition, it's the prestige. Kind of like what would happen if what people think Wimbledon is before they realize what the ticket prices there are.
Yeah.
Can you tell I really like Wimbledon? The books behind me don't give you any clue whatsoever. So yeah, I think that's helpful for A, trying to work out what the selling point of the Miami Open is, and B, helping anyone who wants to go to tennis and figuring out, well, everyone says Indian Wells is great, but I live on the other side of the country and I can't afford the US Open. Is it worth doing Miami? The answer is yes. Definitely over Cincinnati by the sound of it.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like if you are on the East Coast, or even if you're coming in from Europe and, Indian Wells is just so far and cost and all of that, I would say really give Miami a chance. Like, I think it really gets a bad rap and everyone's like, oh, but I wish it was still in Key Biscayne. I'm like, okay, great. It's never going back there. It just is never going back there. So we should just appreciate what we have, and what we have is really good, I think.
One last question, because I know it's happening next week. Because I think, what's Charleston's ground size? Because it used to be the equivalent of 1,000 back in the day. It's got quite a big stadium, and the
Yes.
draw size for the women is almost the size of a 1,000, even if they don't get as many big names as they used to, if they get all the Americans. I'm thinking about this maybe for people who might be planning trips there. I'm not slacking off Houston by any means, but it's a much smaller tournament, and go check out small tournament for the small tournament vibes. But I guess, which vibe does Charleston fit in more with?
It definitely, I feel like it does give the vibe of a 1,000, but only women, because it is big. So there's the big stadium, and then there are there are two smaller courts, and then a lot of practice courts on the side. In terms of size, it's slightly smaller than Miami, but not by much. And the only reason why I would say Miami is bigger is because they just have way more practice courts that you can't even get to. So, and the grounds are great. It's very similar in terms of like tons of places to sit and hang, and they have all these like little stores and restaurants on site and everything. And I actually just got the press release for this new tournament coming up, and they've added new experiences and stuff for fans and all of that. Like, Tennis Channel actually has a booth on the outside, so a lot of times after someone wins on the main stadium, they go straight to the Tennis Channel desk. And there are a lot of fans that just hang around the desk and try and get autographs and things like that. So it does definitely give big tournament vibes, even though it's just a 500.
No, I wanted to ask that question because it just dawned on me that it does look big, and maybe that's another option to add into the mix again from a ground pass experience to consider. It is a 500, but it's a big 500.
It's a big 500.
A big 500. And I've just remembered DC also exists, but that's more on the smaller tournament vibe. I think it's just in a park. So
it's so funny. I actually think that the footprint of Charleston is bigger than DC. Just by the eye, I would say, especially when DC is a mixed tournament. It's like a mixed 500. Yeah. So they could definitely use with more space, for sure.
So what I'm just trying to get at is, just to wrap this up, which you've done, is trying to get an idea of comparing the big tournament footprints and their experiences. And again, Charleston sounds like it would be a good one to throw into the mix. Probably also more affordable.
Yes, definitely. And it's in Charleston, which is a beautiful historic city worth a visit. So I definitely would consider it for sort of like a vacation type of thing, where you go to the city and then you also have the tennis tournament. Could be fun. Could be fun. Okay, it's time to get into the tennis. And there was a lot of tennis themes coming out of the Miami Open. But first things first, I think we have to say we're recording this on Saturday, actually. So we're recording this Saturday, March 28th. We do not know who the winners are yet of anything. But Nick, oh, do we have a winner
We
for the
have a
doubles?
men's double. We have the men's doubles champions. They won about half an hour ago. It was Simone Bolelli and Andrea Vavasori straight setted convincingly Heliovara and Patton.
Double H didn't get through, although they're doing a lot of winning this year. Like Double H is actually doing very, very well. But the Italian duo, the best dressed doubles players on tour, are the champions in Miami. That is so cool. That's excellent. But in fact, that's the only match that's kind of on the side. The other three matches that are coming up, the other finals, they all have the potential of having a sunshine double champion. Nick, you're the historian, but I don't think we've had ever three like sunshine doubles winners in a year. I know we've had some years where we've had the men and women, but this seems big.
It does seem big. Honestly, I haven't looked it up until you told me this was on. Like, I didn't know it was going to happen until you told me this was on earlier. Like, and obviously you put the reel out explaining it. My turn.
Bless you.
So, yeah, I have not looked it up as to whether we've had a triple sunshine double at all. The last time it could have happened was 2016, if it did, was when we got the double and the singles. But yeah, I think it's historic regardless of whether it's happened before because it's just so rare anyway.
Yeah.
And also to have a team that, in the double side, even harder, to have a team that could like win so many matches consecutively in a very competitive women's doubles field, and like not competitive and anyone can win, but like you've got a very elite group of several teams competing for these wins. If Katerina Siniakova and Taylor Townsend win, then they are really cementing themselves as the best team in the world. So it's even harder to do in women's doubles, I think. So I would be most impressed with them if they achieved it out of the three.
Yeah, no, I agree because what they're doing, and I think people talk about it. They're like, oh, they're great or whatever, but I feel like people need to pay attention more to what they're doing on the women's doubles circuit because they're just crushing it and just playing elite tennis and just beating all of these other teams. Like they're the team to beat now in women's doubles and they're really hard to beat. I think they are the favorite. They're going to be playing Jasmine Paolini and Sarah Rani for the title. And they're clearly the favorites. And like you said, it would actually be super impressive if they can get it done because they are also playing some really top teams. You know, Sarah Rani and Jasmine Paolini are Grand Slam champions. Like women's doubles is really just on another level in terms of some of these teams are just quite fantastic.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the other two people up for Sunshine Double are Jannik Sinner and Aryna Sabalenka. And just quickly on Aryna Sabalenka, because I think we talk about her a lot too, but it's like she's just the world number one. She's the world number one, and she's making it known that she's the world number one. And she's the one to beat if you want to get to any title, because she just gets to the semis, quarters, semis, finals of all of these tournaments that she's in. I just don't remember the last time Aryna Sabalenka was out in the third round. I just don't remember the last time that
I
happened.
think that might actually be Dubai or Doha last year because she didn't have a good Middle East double. She didn't play it this year, but like,
Yeah.
and even then that was a blip. Sabalenka 100% is the woman to beat. But here's the thing. I actually think that she's going to be even harder to beat. We didn't catch up after the Indian Wells final, which was an amazing match and is going to be one of the best matches all year. And I loved it. I also loved it because it's the first match that my girlfriend and I watched together in
So
person.
cool.
And she loved it. She absolutely loved it. She was like, she picked up on it very well. She keeps asking me, when are we going to watch another tennis match?
She's a tennis fan. That's all it took.
We got her. So absolutely. So that's special for different reasons, but it was just a really, really good match. But here's the thing. That's the kind of match that Aryna Sabalenka, even Australian Open version of Aryna Sabalenka, might have lost. And she dug deep and she won in the tightest possible final she's ever played. And I think that's giving her a massive confidence boost. Look at the way look at that match she had with Rebecca in the semifinals in Miami, where they had a really like to and fro first set. Sabalenka gets it and then takes control and looks like a better player for the rest of the match. This is Rebecca, who's been giving her all sorts of trouble for 3 consecutive finals, 3 consecutive tournaments, big tournaments. And now she's got Coco Gauff, who's going to be a really different challenger. We'll talk about Coco later. And, you know, there's definite history between these two. They've got a very, very close head-to-head. But I just think that winning that Indian Wells final, because Sabalenka we talk about her getting there, like these finals that sometimes she will not win, even when we think she might. Winning a final like that is going to, I think, take her to another level. And I think we're going to be, say we talk about Aryna Sabalenka a lot, I think we're going to be talking about her even more this year.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be seeing her holding more and more trophies. And I hope that everyone's on board with that, because if not, then you're going to get bored very, very quickly. I still think she'll be challenged. I still think she'll find it tough. I think Coco and Elena and eventually Iga again, and a few of these other teenagers are going to keep pushing her and giving her a run for her money, and they will beat her from time to time. I'm just getting a sense that she'll lose less, and this Sunshine Double may well cement her as she's not going anywhere as the world number 1, and she's asserting herself over, again, a very, very tough top 10 right now, top 15 to be honest. So I'm super impressed with Sabalenka right now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, you know, in a very similar way, Jannik Sinner is back. I mean, I don't think he was gone. I do think when he was beaten at the Australian Open, there was maybe sort of like talk where it's like, oh, are there cracks showing? And then I think was it Mensik who beat him?
Menchik.
Was it in Doha or Dubai? One of those.
Doha,
right? So I think there was definitely some conversation, like, you know, what's happening, what's going on. But he wins Indian Wells, and now he's in the finals of the Miami Open, just looking unbeatable. He has not dropped a set between both tournaments. So he could win the Sunshine Double without dropping a set, which is crazy.
I don't think anyone's done that.
Yeah, I don't know. He's looking great. He's looking so good.
Yeah, unbelievably good. I mean, it's obviously helped that Carlos hasn't had the best Sunshine Double. Carlos Alcaraz, obviously, he lost in the semi-finals unexpectedly Daniel Medvedev, and then goes out to an inspired Sebi Korda in Miami. But yeah, Sinner has proved that he could be beaten by the field briefly, and then has decided, nah, not for me.
No.
And is just playing that much better than everybody by himself. Absolute machine, super impressive. And I think, you know what, winning the Sunshine Double without dropping a set, that is something that is going to end up being one of his most proud achievements, and is going to be something to boast about.
Yeah.
The guy's insane. The guy is absolutely insane. The ability that he has to just play better than everybody, even when they're playing really, really well.
Yeah, totally.
Finding a way through. So, yeah, let's see what happens against Lehechka tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow. That will be tomorrow. And, you know, I think there's, you know, I think people tend to, you know, because they did it to Sinner at the beginning of the year, and now for the Sunshine Double, it's on Carlos, where it's like, oh my God, he can't play tennis anymore. You know? Oh my gosh.
Wait for Clay.
Thank you. Because I think there's no need to sort of exaggerate everything. I think Carlos is fine. The last couple of years, he just hasn't done well at Indian Wells or the Miami Open. So it's not even shocking, you know, kind of based on recent performance. He has won Indian Wells, he has won Miami, but recently he hasn't gotten to those finals, and he has a lot of tennis to play in the next month and a half, 2 months. 5 tournaments, 3 titles to defend. I think this sort of forced break, if you want to call it, because obviously he got out early from the tournament, might be good for him because, if he's going to play Monte Carlo, Barcelona, Madrid, Rome, and Roland Garros, that's a lot. Those are a lot of tournaments to sort of like get through. So I wouldn't freak out, guys. It's all right. It's all right. I saw somewhere on Threads during his match with Sebi Korda, and someone just wrote, "What's going on with the world number one?" I'm like, everyone calm down. Everyone simmer down. It's gonna be okay. Who might it not be okay for? Iga Swiatek. This was a really tough one because I happened to be in her press. It wasn't really a press conference. It was sort of like a sort of a quick kind of media thing with Iga Swiatek after she lost her match to Magdalene. Am I wrong?
Yeah, Magdalene.
Yeah, to Magdalene at the Miami Open. And the reason why I kind of wanted to talk about this is because during Indian Wells, I put out a Substack, which I will link in the description of this podcast, where I talked about sort of players taking breaks and coming back new people. And a lot of those breaks were injury related. So, of course, it was Arthur Fils, it was Jack Draper. But then I also put in there Aryna Sabalenka, who I think wasn't so injured. I think she did, for one of the tournaments, she did cite like a hip injury or something like that. But I just thought there was this sort of theme of players taking extended breaks and coming back refreshed, renewed, and playing so well. We will get to Arthur Fils in a second. But with Iga, and it's so funny because at the end of that article, I had posted a screenshot from the match that Iga lost at Indian Wells, where she just looked so frustrated. And one of the last lines was just sort of like, maybe players should consider breaks. And I just put that photo, didn't even mention Iga. And then this happened at the Miami Open. And one of my questions to her after that match was, did she think, because the way I phrased it, she might have taken it a different way, but the way I was approaching it was, will you take like a moment to just do nothing? Like right after that loss, like, will you take a moment to just do nothing and sort of reassess before you jump right back into the tennis? And her response was like, no, I'm totally fine. I'm not depressed. I'm great. So I'm going to jump right into the tennis and figure out what's going on court. And shortly after that, it was announced that she had split from her coach, Wim Bissett. So she's going to be looking for a new coach now. And I wanted to ask what you thought of that concept of players taking a break or an extended break in order to sort of like come back refreshed in regards to Iga.
Yeah, in general, depends on the player. If you ask Jessica Pegula to do that, she would go insane. Like, no. Or actually, if you asked Coco Gauff to do that, I don't think she'd take it very well either. So it may be a European versus American mindset here. If you watch any like reels or things of people comparing what it's like to work in European countries versus American countries, you might know what I'm on about.
Yeah.
So there's only one American country. What am I talking about? Moving on. In regards to Iga, there's multiple things that are coming to mind here and as a response to your question. Number one, clearly she obviously took something on board, because if you saw her Instagram, she's posted photos of herself relaxing, having she was wearing some kind of digital mask thing. I don't know what it does, but like it does look like some kind of techno spa thingy.
Nick, it's a light mask, okay? It's a light
It's a
mask.
light mask.
It's good for your skin. It's really awesome. I haven't seen it, but I'm guessing that's what you saw.
Yeah, yes. She's wearing a light mask. Oh my gosh, yeah, this is one of those things where everyone listening is rolling their eyes and going, such a man. So she did that. She also posted her reading, which obviously we know that she loves, and it looks like she has had some kind of decompression time, and that's what she's posted about on her Instagram. Obviously, as we all know, with anything that we put on Instagram of our own personal profiles, take with a pinch of salt, because we don't put everything on Instagram, and some of it can be curated. But It's genuine photos. She's had a break. She has taken something on board. Iga is also someone who said many, many times before over the years that she wants more breaks in tennis, that she feels like the schedule is too intense, that she wants more time away from tennis or more time to kind of work on things. And she's always feel like she has to compete. Whilst also then going out and saying, no, I've got to go and do the thing because she knows, she believes there's an she is someone who takes other people's expectations on heavily, and so she feels she has to play it, not necessarily fans' expectations, but also like when you have a job and you feel like you've got to go and do everything your boss asks you to do. It's that kind of mentality of, well, I'm supposed to play all these tournaments, so I guess I kind of have to, even though I don't like it and it's too much. Iga does that. So if anyone is open to the idea of a break, it's Iga, but Iga also wants to work hard to get back to the top. She's not satisfied with she'll be world number 4 after this tournament. She won't be satisfied with being there. She wants to get back to the top. And I think that possibly is feeding into what she said, because I think she said in other interviews that she feels like tennis is complicated in her head, that she's not enjoying things. And she said, I remember she saying in an interview with Caroline Garcia on the Tennis Insider Club podcast last year, that when she's feeling good, she's playing good. When she's not feeling good, she's not playing good. And sometimes that equation is just simple. If you see Iga or pretty much any player underperforming, there's something else going on that means they're not feeling good. Again, tennis is an individual sport. You don't have teammates to cover for you when you're not able to maybe perform as much as you want, or you can kind of mask it a little bit more. This is something like when someone doesn't feel good, you know it, but then everyone tries to put tennis fixes in, and actually that may not necessarily fix the problem. It's just there's stuff going on, and clearly the stuff going on wasn't being helped with the current coaching setup, and something needed to change there. So, yeah, does Iga need a break? I think she's taking it. Whether it's long enough for her, only she can be the judge of that. She doesn't need to play till Stuttgart, that's the next tournament she's entered in, which is, that's in 3 weeks' time. So she's got at least 2 weeks off before playing. I don't think she's doing Billie Jean King Cup. So, and then there's a tournament she enjoys. She can get back on the clay and see how she is. So, yeah, Iga, probably a break would do her good, but I think there's other things that she needs to figure out with herself that we are not privy to before we'll see her get back to the top, and that just needs to take as long as it needs to.
Yeah. No, you're right. So be interesting to see how she does on the clay and how she comes back and who her new coach is going to be. All of that stuff, I'm sure, will be answered soon. A few more things before we move on to what is coming up next, and also a couple of stories. We actually have a bunch to still talk about, so we're going to run through the next things really quickly. But
I've just kept talking for way too long.
It's all good, but we haven't done this in a while, guys. It's kind of, you can expect a long one today. I did just want to bring up the teens because I just feel the future of tennis is so bright. There were so many great moments from, the Miami Open with Maurice Kwame, who is the youngest male player to win a match at a Masters 1000 level event since Rafa Nadal. He won his first round match. Martin Landeluz from Spain. We've talked about him during Next Gen. He's doing great. Momboku just keeps blowing our minds because she's just that good. And then Lily Tagger. So I think the future is bright. Don't you think?
We've been saying this since the beginning of the year. In fact, I'm going to say this. You've been saying that 2026 is going to be the year of the small tournament. I think that 2026 is going to be the year of the tennis teenagers, because they just keep coming and we keep talking about them and they keep giving us things to talk about that isn't just hype based on an eye test. So we're gonna keep talking about this, guys. You're gonna get sick of it, but this generation on the men's and the women's side seems particularly special that's coming through. We'll see what injuries and what kind of life on tour does in the future, but they're certainly going to give you a good watch, whatever happens.
Yeah, for sure. And Arthur Fils is looking like the third guy. I don't know what you think about that, but I feel like Arthur Fils is really putting, he put in his application to be the third guy in the Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz duopoly. It's just kind of crazy to think He was gone for so long, almost 8 months, I believe, and then came back, got to a final, is just playing so well. Did you get to watch any of his Miami Open matches at all, or just followed his sort of like Sunshine Double run?
I've been following his run. I haven't seen any. I think I had a couple of his matches on in the background for things going on. I am really annoyed that I didn't see his match against Tommy Paul because that happened in the middle of the night for me. In fact, a lot of FISA's
Yeah.
matches have been scheduled at night.
Yeah.
I woke up to a lot of people going on about how good that match was. I don't know what went wrong against Lehechka. Maybe he was a little bit tired from that match, playing him.
I think so.
So Feast is the third guy. I think I need to see him win more than 5 matches in a row before I kind of start to see that. I think at the moment, like his best results have been 500 wins or Masters 1000 semi-finals, and that's like 5 matches. And I think that's a ceiling that he keeps hitting. But tennis-wise, absolutely, I think he should, when he's fully tennising, he should be able to give Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz a run for their money with his exciting, explosive game. Like, if Alcaraz drives Sinner mad, then Feast definitely will. And I think a fully firing Feast against Alcaraz should be really, really fun. I'm just disappointed that hasn't quite materialized yet, but I think it will. I think there's a lot of other people in there who've put their applications in for the third guy. Tennis-wise, in theory, yeah, I'm on board with that happening. I just want to say that I don't know if for me, I don't think he's quite separated himself out from, say, the Jack Drapers of the world, or I've gone for the British one, haven't I? Or the Ben Sheltons of the world, to try and balance things out. So that's all I'll say.
Yeah, you're right. We'll see how that third person. I just feel like this year that person's coming. I don't know why, but I have a feeling that third person's gonna in some way materialize. And we shouldn't, of course, forget about Holger Rune, who is injured, but I also feel like he's someone who, maybe the time away, recovering from injury, he can work on his game a bit and is going to come back a different player. So let us see on that. Let us just hit on some other news that's been happening that I don't know if you've seen any of this, Nick, but they definitely came up on my feed and I thought, ooh, we need to talk about that. But Madrid Open, the clay season is about to start. Right after Miami, that's when the clay season starts. And Madrid Open just announced that there are going to be some practice courts in Bernabeu. And if you don't know what Bernabeu is, it is the biggest sort of football, for the Americans, soccer stadium in Madrid. And, I think the Madrid, we've never really talked about this because we haven't gone, but the word on the street is the Madrid Open has very few practice courts. So there's always sort of like it being a mixed 1000 level event, the need for practice courts is high, especially at the beginning of the tournament. So it seems like they're adding practice courts to Bernabeu. The two things that I don't know is, are fans going to be able to go there and watch practice? Because that sounds epic. I've been in Bernabeu watching football and it is such an experience. So imagine watching tennis in that space. That just seems crazy. That was announced. Go ahead.
I know the answer to your question. Bernabeu is obviously one of the most famous football. I think I've heard it pronounced Bernabeu on football commentary. But yeah.
Spaniards, let us know. Bernabeu,
Yeah.
Bernabeu, let us
Yeah. Real Madrid team is based there, one of the biggest teams in the world, multiple European champions, famous rivalry Barcelona. But I know the answer. So, because I saw it coming up in my feed, like it's on the BBC, they're talking about it. So,
Ooh.
No, fans will not be allowed in. It's literally just for the photo ops. That's literally all it's for. It's to try and, they're saying it's for space reasons, like the Caja Magica is struggling to fit all the facilities that is needing. It's a double 1000, like combined 1000. So they've done this as a little bit of a publicity gimmick. I don't know if they're going to allow cameras in. They're definitely going to allow photographers in. It may well be they'll do live streams of practice and you can watch on there. But no, fans will not be allowed to into the Bernabeu to watch. Also, I have a feeling that it would be very similar vibe to Miami with their NFL stadium or American football stadium. but maybe not as bad because I know soccer stadiums are not as big.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the same way. But yeah, that would be that's kind of to bring the downer on the thing is the only way you can watch is on TV if they stream it. So we don't know
Yeah.
that yet. I would imagine they would.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting because um that's a shame. I wonder if they'll reverse that at some point when they see maybe how it does or whatever in future years. But the one thing I will say is in terms of social media coverage, streaming, all of that, Madrid Open year on year, they just do the best job. They're everywhere. They're on YouTube, they're on Twitch, they're on Instagram. Wherever you need the Madrid Open to be, they really do great coverage of the tournament. So I would assume that there would be some sort of streaming, or at least we would get photos out of it or something like that. The one thing I will say that this kind of brought up for me is it reminded me that they have two tournament directors now. So Feliciano Lopez, who has been the tournament director forever, is now being joined by Garbinia Muguruza, who is a former WTA player. She actually is also the tournament director for the WTA finals. And it got me thinking, first of all, I don't think there are any female tournament directors for the 1000 level, even the ones that are women only, the ones that are in sort of Dubai and Doha.
Oh,
And
definitely.
yeah, and I'm just wondering, wait a second, but why? And
I
if
think
they
Muguruza is the
aren't,
tournament director for the WTA finals, but it's not a 1000 level.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's kind of like we should this should happen everywhere. Like Indian Wells, Miami, everyone
Mm-hmm.
go find a female tournament director because I think this is something actually that a lot of people, especially new fans, don't quite understand. But the ATP Tour, which is the men's, and the WTA Tour, which is the women's, are separate organizations with separate media rights and separate everything. Even the net, they have to change the net between matches at the mixed events. So even though, and I think the Miami Open actually is the best showcase of this because at Indian Wells, for example, the tournament starts on the same day for everybody. In Miami, the women start first and then the men start the next day. It's literally imagine if there were two separate tournaments that just happen to be in the same location. That's
Yep.
exactly what these mixed 1000 level events are. So, if that's the case, we can keep all the male tournament directors. That's fine. Let's keep them. Let's just add female tournament directors to deal with the WTA. How about that? Like I don't know why this just came up when I saw the video of the Madrid Open sort of promoting tennis at Bernabeu because obviously Feliciano Lopez and Garbinia Muguruza were in the video and I'm just like, wait, every single mixed 1000 level event should do this. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think here's the thing. I think a lot of this, you're right. For fans' perspective, I think we do need to be clearer that we have two separate tournaments going on in the same place.
Yeah.
But obviously, the tournaments themselves, the locations themselves, want to be seen as combined tournaments.
Yeah.
That's why at one point there was a Premier Tour idea floated of the combined 1000s breaking away and joining the Grand Slams and becoming this massive kind of separate thing because they want to be treated as one tournament that has both and be mini slams,
Yeah.
which makes things complicated politically. One for each makes sense logistically in that scenario where you've got one tournament director for each event happening, men's and women's. And yeah, I think if you can make it work on an organizational level, I think it makes sense, especially at tournaments like, say, Madrid, which has come under fire in the past for maybe how it's treated the women's event compared to the men's in the last few years. So having that is probably in to mitigate it, and it's a good thing. So if we see more of it, I think it's potentially a sensible idea, especially as these tournaments keep getting bigger and bigger and a lot for one person to manage.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I just kept feeling so bad for James Blake, who's the tournament director in the Miami Open that day that was just completely rained out. I'm sure his phone did not stop ringing. So maybe it would be nice to have a co-tournament director to help out with stuff. But yeah, let us know. Like, actually, this is something that I just thought of. I would be interested to know what people think, but I really do think like all these mixed 1000 level events should have, two tournament directors. I know it opens a can of worms a little bit for the Grand Slams because you're kind of like, well, they should do it too. But I think their structure is a little different per se. But either way,
Yeah.
let us know what you think. Leave it in the comments, leave a note, send us a carrier pigeon, anything. So let us know. Also, this is really quick. The Ground Pass t-shirts are still on sale. I'll leave a link in the description. I intended to drop the new merch and the new shirt way earlier than it is happening now, but I have realized that I cannot do everything. And when I'm at a tournament, it's just really difficult to do anything else. So I think the new shirts will just come after Charleston when sort of the tour moves over to Europe and it's a little calmer and I can drop the shirt, which is going to be spring themed, if that gives you any guesses. I feel like people should already know what the shirt's going to look like based on what the first shirt looked like. And actually, if you watch the podcast, I think it was maybe it was like 3 or 4 episodes ago, I put a photo of what the shirt is going to look like. So yeah, the shirts will come after Charleston. I wanted them to be earlier, but couldn't make it happen. Could not make it
You
happen.
keep having to learn this every time you go to a tournament, Anastasia.
Yes, it's a lesson
Every
I
time.
need to learn more than once. Okay, Nicholas, what's happening? What's going on this week?
Right, yes. Well, apart from the fact that as we're recording, we've still got to get through some Miami Open finals. We're back on clay. And everyone's on clay this time. It's not like some people are on clay if they're playing in South America and everyone else on hard. Everyone is on clay. So yeah, we mentioned already that obviously that we mentioned Charleston's happening this week on the WTA on the green clay, and we've also got some South American clay for the WTA, Bogota in Colombia, altitude event. That is probably where we're going to find off-season player Camila Osorio, who's the defending champion. Jessica Pegula is the defending champion in Charleston, and there's quite the impressive field there because you've got Anisimova, Keys, Jovic, as I said, like all the Americans apart from Coco Gauff generally go. So really good event to attend there. And then we've got in the men's, again, if you want to follow the American men, go to Houston. That is where the US Clay Court Championships are taking place. And you've got some big names like Ben Shelton's there. You've got Tommy Paul, Francis Tiafoe, Leonard Tien, and Jenson Brooksby is the defending champion. He's opening on Sunday, actually, so probably after this podcast's gone out. You've got Marrakesh.
Actually,
yeah,
I have a little bit of a question because I put in this Tien TBD. Did you see this photo he put out on social media?
No.
So Lerner Tien on his Instagram put out a photo of a grass court and the caption said, "See you in 2027 clay." And I was like, what? So I put him in Houston as a TBD because he's listed on the entry list. But I was sort of like, is this some sort of like elaborate joke? Like maybe he was just on a grass court and was like making a fun joke. But if he doesn't show up in Houston, I don't know, guys. Maybe we can have an emergency pod and be like, what's going on with Lerner Tien? But
did he post April Fool's post a few days by mistake?
maybe he did. It was maybe scheduled to go out April 1st. And then went out early. I don't know. I have no idea. But that's why I put a TBD next to his name. But continue on, Nick.
Okay, yeah, I did see the TBD and I was like, I don't know what's going on there, but there you go. Maybe Leonard Tien's skipping clay. Don't skip clay, it's great to watch. Anyway, so we've got Marrakesh, where you've got Luciano Darderis, defending champion, a few names like Matteo Berrettini and Corentin Moutet taking part, and Bucharest, where Flavio Cobolli is defending champion, and you've got players like Gabriel Diallo and Sebastian Baez taking part. So week off for some of the top players, unless you're American, in Charleston, Houston. interesting clay stuff going on in various continents. It's a very worldwide tour because now we've got events in America, in South America and Africa going on right now in North Africa. So that is very exciting. I've already spoiled where one of our off-season players is going Anastasia. Do you want to tell what the rest are?
Yes, I do. So, funny enough, Ethan Quinn is actually taking a break as well. He's taking the week off. And we're not going to see him. Actually, is it more than a week? But we're not going to see him basically till Monte Carlo. He has decided to sort of like go headfirst into European clay. And like most Americans, unlike most Americans, I should say, who skip Monte Carlo, I think the only American that really plays Monte Carlo every year is Tiafo. And I don't even know if he's going to be playing it this year. But like Tommy
Fritz
Paul
usually
never
plays, doesn't he?
goes. No, Tommy Paul hasn't gone in a while.
No, Taylor Fritz.
Oh, Taylor Fritz has, but he's not going to go this year.
Okay.
He's pulled out of Monte Carlo. So it's going to be, it might be Ethan Quinn and maybe Tiafo in Monte Carlo. But yes, so Ethan Quinn's going to be in Monte Carlo. Elliot Svizzeri, unfortunately, is still injured. So we're just waiting to see when he's going to be coming back. Colton Smith will be in Houston. Camilla, like you said, is in Bogota. And Haley Baptiste will be in Charleston. That is where she is starting her clay court season. So, yeah, I think also what happened this time with going to all these tournaments is I wasn't only doing ground pass stuff, I was also shooting off season stuff. So I'm really excited for off season, in season, as I'm calling it. I think that's just going to be the name because I can't think of anything better. But I have shot most of the off season players throughout all the tournaments I've been to. So I'm really excited to share what their stories have been like through the US spring swing before they head off to Europe for the clay season. And that won't be coming out till a little bit later. We are currently in they're only 5 episodes out of off season currently. The 6th episode isn't going to be out till next month. I scheduled it right now to come out April 5th. So stay tuned for that. And if you haven't watched the series yet, you have time to catch up on all 5 episodes. You can sort of like have a streaming day and like just watch all 5 of them. I'll leave the links to all of them in the description of this podcast. Nick, it's been too long, okay?
It's been way
It
too
has
long.
been too long, way too long, since we've had a player of the Fortnight. So we might do something crazy here. We might just do all of them. But no, I'm going to start because you have a bunch to talk about. But I'm going to start with mine so that you can have time to talk about your players of the Fortnight. So, my player of the Fortnight has to be Martin Landaluth. He's a Spaniard, young Spanish player. We've talked about him a whole bunch when he participated in Next Gen, when he first came out on the scene, because I think Spain in general, there was a time where sort of there was just a Spanish player wherever you looked. It was kind of like Italy. And they've kind of had a dearth of that a little bit. They've had Carlos Alcaraz, but not really anyone following up after him. Now they do. Now they do in Rafa Hodar, who we also talked about like during Del Rey and earlier on in the year. And they have Martin Landaluth now, who got to the quarterfinals of the Miami Open. Really, really big run for him to just have, at the Miami Open. He hasn't gotten this far at a 1,000 level event before. So it's a first for him. A lot of points on the board. He's a great player. He isn't your typical Spanish looking player. He's super tall and blonde, big serve, but is super fun and exciting to watch. So excited to see what he can do during clay season, which is, that's his bread and butter. He trains out of the Rafa Nadal Academy. So really excited to see what he can do for the rest of the year. And he is currently leading, along with Rafa Hodar, the sort of race to the next gen for this year. So they're on top of it ahead of Joao Fonseca. So they have more points on the board than Joao Fonseca. So that's super exciting. Martin Landaluth, look for him on a ground pass. he's a fun watch.
There you go. This is where the next generation of Spaniards is coming from. We worried it was drying up after Carlos Alcaraz. Yeah, Martin Andaluz, great to see him make some impact on the main tour this couple of weeks. I am in a bit of a pickle for my player of the fortnight because I knew who I wanted for ages, and that's Talia Gibson. Talia Gibson is player of the month, pretty much, because she got to the quarterfinals of Indian Wells. Really, really good run. Really confident in the way she hits the ball. She really goes for her shots. I hadn't seen too much of her before, but she is still a relatively young player at 21, not that much younger than Coco Gauff. Something happened where she suddenly went from top 100, outside the top 100 to almost top 50 in a month by getting to the quarterfinals of Indian Wells and the last 16 in Miami. Watched her match of Indian Wells against Linda Noskova, which went to 3-set. I thought I was watching two very similar players, to be honest. Very confident hitters. Maybe the occasion got a bit to Talia, but honestly, so good to see. And then she backed it up. She came through qualifying at both tournaments.
At both tournaments, yep.
This woman has played non-stop tennis for a month. I'm hoping she takes a break. She's now very much set in the top 100 now. She's got a really good base to work from and really, really exciting and great to see another talent coming out of Australia. So for me, it was like, okay, no question. She has been the Grand Pass player of the Sunshine Double. And then Hailey Baptiste happened. So obviously, when I say happened, obviously we knew her well. She's a star of the off season. Like at some point she was going to figure, and she nearly did around when she got to the semi-finals in Abu Dhabi and really pushed Ekaterina Alexandrova. And I was kind of like, are we going to get a Baileck Baptiste final? Because that would be epic in Abu Dhabi. Didn't happen. Baptiste was epic this week because she charged her way through Ludmila Samsonova. She charged her way. She beat Alina Svitolina, who didn't look like losing out to anyone outside the top 10 this year. Like, that was a great performance from Hailey. And then she backs up against Yelena Ostapenko, who I thought was about to do Yelena Ostapenko things because she'd suddenly got a run together. Gets to a match against Aryna Sabalenka and acquits herself fairly well. Like, Sabalenka was always going to win that, but I thought Hailey did well to kind of, run with Sabalenka in the way that she did. So I was like, well, Hailey's kind of had this big run and it's not fair, but I can't really not give it to Talia. So Anastasia has very graciously allowed me to have two players of the fortnight, and they are Talia Gibson and Hailey Baptiste. Very, very well, very, very good players, and two players you should definitely check out on a Grand Pass because especially since they might not be on Grand Passes for very long, particularly Hailey Baptiste. So Anastasia has been absolutely right. Hailey is a very exciting player to watch, and you can see all the off-season work that she put in really, really paying off. So I'm joining the hype train for Hailey. Did you want another one, Anastasia, or are you fine with just having one?
No, I'm just going to have one, but I will definitely sort of back you up on your picks. Like, they're just, if you didn't pick them, I was going to pick them. Basically, I was going to break my own rule and just pick them. But Talia Gibson, it was really great to just sort of watch her run through Indian Wells. And then I made a point to request her for an interview after her first round win, just to talk about her run. So actually, I have a full interview with her that will be coming out on our Substack. So definitely stay tuned for that. It's on video, so you can watch it or just listen to it on our Substack. Our Substack is free to subscribe and to read. So definitely go there. But of course, if you want to become a paid subscriber, I won't stop you. It does us very well. It's very supportive. Thank you. But so excited for that, to share that with you. On our Substack as well, I am going to be sharing a bunch of clips and what I'm calling sound bites from the press room, because there were a lot of super cool sound bites. One that from Jannik Sinner on Lily Tagger, who he actually knows very well. So that was very interesting when I asked him that question. And then also with Hailey Baptiste, like your second pick, I just think watching her through Indian Wells, Miami was so great because I followed her through off season, shooting as much as I could with her through that run. And that, I think, is for me what off season is about. And I cannot wait to share all the stuff from off season, in season, because you just kind of see the growth and the change in the player and what they're working on and what they're like during a tournament. So you obviously have seen all the results and stuff, but then you'll get to see the behind the scenes. Little spoiler, there was an Uno game during the rain delay that I got to film with Haley Baptiste. So that was really fun with her team. But yeah, it was like really really fun and great to see her run through that, and I'm glad she was one of your picks for player of the fortnight. Nick, we did it. We finished recording the podcast before the match started because that's what we're going to do now. We're going to go watch the women's singles and see if we get a first time Sunshine double winner or if Coco can pull it off. So let us see how that goes. Guys, thank you so much for hanging with us. Sorry we missed an episode, but if you can tell by my voice, I am not 100%, but we're getting there. But yeah, thank you for listening to this episode. You know what to do. Please leave us a 5-star review on a podcast player of your choice if you're listening and you think we deserve it. The fact that I'm recording with this voice means we deserve it. Leave us a comment, leave us a question. I definitely read all of those. So it would be great to see that there. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for being with us. We're going to go watch some tennis now. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.